report about deforestation rates that are currently going on in Central America and Caribbean islands that
Sorry? Yes. So the question was, is there a single definitive report or publication that addresses deforestation rates in Central America and the Caribbean that I could recommend? And the answer is there very, very seldom is a single report anywhere that addresses deforestation. In fact, we have been working on a jurisdictional approach in the Bandundu province of the DR Congo, and we have had to mire through several, almost 10 different studies, and we ended up taking, in most cases, a mean of the results from several studies. So my short answer is, unfortunately, I don't know. I don't work in Central America very much, although we have some feasibility studies going on there, and I don't think I've ever done a feasibility study or worked in a Caribbean island, but that doesn't mean that they're under clear threat of sea level rise, and those are very important areas. I would maybe ask Diego Pedreros, who Molly knows well. He is part of the FuseNet program at UCSB, and he studies Central and Central America and Latin America anyway. His name's Diego Pedreros. He's part of USGS as well, right? So I can give you his information after the talk. Personally, I don't know, but I think he would. So, sorry I couldn't answer that more clearly. Yes?
You are a for-profit company, and the work you do seems very labor-intensive. How much time will it take you to cover? How much ground can you cover? And who is paying you? And how do you pay all these people who are helping you make the measurements and things like that?
Okay, very good questions. Let me try to repeat it. Okay, we're a for-profit company, true. It seems like we have to cover a lot of ground, also true. How are we making money? Who pays us? And how do we pay all of these people who are making measurements for us? Good questions. Okay, let me try to take them one at a time. We're a for-profit company for several reasons, one of which is that, as I mentioned in the beginning, I didn't want to get too deep into it in my talk, but our philosophy is to create jobs. Our primary goal is to come into an area that is either desperate or near desperate because they're either operating on marginal lands, or they're starving, or they have no water, they need educating, they need schools built, whatever. And our goal is to give those people livelihoods, alternative livelihoods other than those which depend on destroying the forest. It's an optional thing. When we came into Kenya, we sat down with the communities. We had endless, it seemed like, meetings with the communities, asking them, look, do you want us here? Do you want us to build this eco-factory? Do you want us to protect your land from poaching and from deforestation and give you the proceeds from that? We're going to take a cut of it, but we're going to give you X percent. So what we do is we signed what we call carbon easements. Now, it's different in Kenya than it is in the Congo because of land tenure. So let's take the Kenyan example. In Kenya, the land is owned by the communities, and these are called group ranches. So all these polygons that you saw are community-owned group ranches. They're owned by the people. Essentially, they have title deeds. It's private land. We work with the landowners, and we sign what's called carbon easements with them, where we say, look, here's our idea. We're going to protect, if you allow us to protect your land, the borders of your land from deforestation and from poaching, we will get paid. I'll talk about how we get paid and how much. Well, a little bit about how much, not much, but we will get paid, and here is what we're prepared to give you. Here's how much we're going to take, and here's how much has to go to the community at large. And we then set up what I showed a couple slides ago called community development, community CLDs. Now I'm forgetting what they stand for, but they're development organizations in which, so that the proceeds just don't go to individual families and they turn around and buy a Range Rover with it. That's not the goal of avoided deforestation. So in short, we sign agreement. We don't buy land, so we do not purchase land ever. We sign agreements or easements with either landowners, the government, whoever has responsibility for the land. And we sign agreements that they're basically a contract that states, okay, Wildlife Works needs X percent to operate. We're going to give landowners X percent, and then the rest goes to the communities. And by to the communities, I mean they go into this trust where the community members can write proposals and then get grants to build schools, build water catchment systems, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. School bursaries. We put something like 3,000 kids to secondary school and then college. We ask the communities what they want to do with the money, and they can do it. Now, your next question, who's paying us? We are right now operating in what's called the voluntary market. So who's paying us right now is corporations, and corporations are allowed to do whatever they want with their profits. What we do, we have a full-blown sales and marketing department. Hopefully one or more of them is listening to this talk right now. What they do is they go out and they talk to major corporations, Nike, PPR, the umbrella company that runs Stella McCartney, Yves Saint Laurent. We talk to Puma. We're doing business with La Poste, the French post office, banks. We do business with BNP Paribas. They've been getting bad press lately, but we do business with them. Ned Bank out of South Africa. They agree to purchase X carbon credits from us, and that each credit goes toward the protection of a ton of carbon dioxide equivalent that otherwise would have been burned and gone into the atmosphere. We pledge to protect, and this is my job, is to account for how many tons of CO2 equivalent we're protecting, and they turn into, once we get accredited, which is also my job, the whole audit system. So we have to get audited with extremely rigorous standards called the Verified Carbon Standard, and also the Climate, Community, and Biodiversity Standard. That's done through a process called validation. So once we're validated, we get issued carbon credits. We can then sell those credits to corporations. Now, I said we're in a voluntary market right now. Eventually, the hope is that the carbon market turns into a compliance market in which companies that pollute are required to pay a tax if they go above a certain level, which is called the cap, and that's what cap and trade is. So that hasn't come about yet. We had the Waxman-Markey bill that you probably all remember that failed. We had, was it Kerry Boxer? Or another bill that came after Waxman-Markey that failed. The U.S. is not very strong in climate change legislation right now because it's dealing with other issues. Europe has already an emissions trading scheme called the ETS, and most of our business is done in Europe. Even most of the corporations that want to buy or invest in avoided deforestation are either in Europe or Africa. So the U.S. has not really caught on to this voluntary market yet. But as I said, our hope, and I think all of the multilaterals' hope, is that this turns into a compliance market in which the price of a carbon credit goes up, and companies and parastatals like, well, I don't know if you can call PG&E a parastatal, but polluters, emitters, are forced to pay a fine, if you will, or a tax for their pollution. And that's the hope, is that they're eventually forced to, and we'll provide those they'll buy credits from us, and we'll offset or protect. Offset is a bad word to use now, but we'll protect the forests and prevent this deforestation from occurring. I can't get really into how much each credit is worth right now because it's kind of in flux, and that's a bit sensitive. But suffice it to say that that's how we make money: is we sell carbon credits. We've also recently done some consulting projects for USAID, for other organizations that are not for profit. But you're absolutely right. We function like an NGO. We function like a nonprofit, but we are for profit, and it's mainly because we sell products. So we have an eco factory, which I can show you if I can show you a video of. We have an eco factory that we built in Kenya. We taught about at least 100 women how to sew, and we're selling the products that they made on the international market. And so for that reason and for a couple of other reasons, we have to be for profit. But we do operate like any other NGO would, really, with the exception of these products that we sell, because we're about creating jobs. That was a very long-winded answer, but I hope it answered your question.
Jerry, I actually appreciate the attention you paid to all the questions because they're very thorough. We are going to close down the lines, and if you'd like to stay and speak with Jeremy, please do so. Jeremy, thank you for coming in and being our closing speaker for the policy series.
My pleasure.
We are going to continue the policy series in the fall. So we have opened up the CMS website for suggestions and comments. If there are people that you would like to have us invite to the policy series, please let us know. And thank you for your support, and thank you to everybody who is listening on the phone and online. So, Jeremy, we'll have your talk up through the CMS website so people will be able to contact you
Great.
as well. Do you have a minute to stay?
Yeah, of course.
Awesome.
Thanks, everyone.